What's good, guys? All right. So, today we're going to talk about whether it's okay for Christians to compromise. We had this discussion last week, and Maureen and I just want to give our perspective. So, I'll start. Well, there are places in the public space, whether it's at our jobs or really in any public area, where sometimes in the United States we have a lot of pressure to compromise or not say that we're believers in God or decide that we'd rather remain quiet instead of create a problem or a commotion to go against the general opinion and say that no, we disagree with something, or yes, I'm pro-life, or no, I'm not going to teach certain things in a classroom because of my faith. And there's that choice. Like, we can say something, we can stand up for our faith, or we can remain quiet and just get by. But then the question also arises, is sometimes being like undercover or quiet, is that sometimes better? And a friend of mine was talking about the underground church in China that he lived with for a year, and how they wouldn't have been able to do anything. They would have been thrown in prison or potentially even killed if they would have just said that they believed in God, to quote, stand up for their faith. And his thing to me was like, is that compromising? Is that wrong? And so at this point, I don't really know, like, is compromising bad or good? It's hard for me to say one way all or all the other way. But I think in the United States, and for me, I think I should stand up for what I know is right, and I think I should stand up and say, yes, I am a Christian, and yes, I do believe in God, and yes, there are lines in the sand of places I will not go, things I will not condone, and things I will promote, and things I will condone because of my faith. So that's my side of the discussion.
Hi everyone. So I thought to change it up a little bit, I will interview my mother regarding the topic that we were talking about in this video, which we talked about on our Zoom meeting a few nights ago. So here we go. So you were on our Zoom call on Tuesday or Wednesday. What are your thoughts about Christians and compromising our values in public spaces, be it at work or other functions?
So, I think that it is not right to compromise when it comes to issues such as issues in the medical field like abortion or physician-assisted suicide. That is something that would be completely non-negotiable. There is just no way that I could ever participate in an abortion or in a physician-assisted suicide.
How do you see that playing into just life in general? Like, maybe apart from the workplace. I know you work, obviously, in medicine, but how does that apply to just, life in general, issues that we see in the world that we are responsible to respond to in some way? Like, what do you see our role as doing?
That's a good question, because life as a whole, right? So if I don't compromise in one area, I should not compromise in any area.
Yeah.
And actually it's that kind of compromise that happens. It's the little things. It's even down to the way I treat the people I'm working with, or if I see something happening that is against the way of Jesus, if I'm not faithful to how Jesus wants me to live in all those little things, then when the big question comes, I'm not going to be able to stick to my guns. So compromise is much more than just these questions of physician-assisted suicide or the gay lifestyle or abortion or any of these other things. It is, life is a whole, and either I am a follower of Christ in everything or in nothing. I can't be partly following Jesus and being very strict and then letting other things go.
That makes sense. So how do you see, you were talking about various medical procedures, how do you see this potentially affecting your work in the future? Maybe right now there is a lot of, there still is freedom in medicine to follow your conscience to an extent, and especially in the setting here, to be able to do things that treat our patients with respect and dignity and not have to perform procedures that go against what we believe. But do you think, how do you see that changing maybe in the next years?
So what appears to be changing is, or what is changing is that God is being taken out of the equation. So there's people in the bioethics field, and they are now saying that if we would allow some doctors to say my conscience does not allow me to do an abortion, if we acknowledge that and allow them to refuse that procedure, we will have to also allow doctors who refuse to prescribe antibiotics, because antibiotics kill bacteria, and bacteria is a form of life. And these people are equating an abortion with killing bacteria, and saying that we might have to be, we'll have patients in the future potentially refused care in the form of antibiotics because the doctor says it's against my conscience to kill bacteria. That is pretty far out, but there are people, I don't know how long it will take until this goes into, until this affects the work, but this is what some people are saying. So the other words of Jesus that I think of when I think of compromise is when he said, if you deny me before men, I will deny you before my Father. And so yes, we have to be as wise as serpents and innocent as doves, but when it comes down, if it comes down to the honor of Jesus, and if it comes down to an action, such as the action of committing an abortion, there's no room for silence. There's no room for anything except witnessing to what God wants us to do.
Medicine is definitely a field where many people are having to rethink their values and what they believe. Well, not rethink them. I mean, we all know we believe, but having to say, what am I putting first? Is it my belief in what I value or my paycheck? I think it's coming down to that multiple times now. I and we are fortunate to work in a Christian medical facility where we all agree, we have the same values on life, on not taking a life, but that's not the case in obviously most secular places. And so when I think about compromising in the workplace, obviously similar to my mom, it has to be the same values and everything everywhere I do. So it can't be one thing here and something else somewhere else. But I'd have to say I do feel very fortunate that I work in the environment that I do, in which I can hold my beliefs and not have to worry about retaliation or losing my job or, getting pushed out of my job for believing something that I do. I'm very fortunate in that, and I pray for all the people who have to struggle with it daily, especially people in the healthcare field, knowing that it could cost you your job one day. So I think of people who are in that situation. And I also, the other side of the coin of this conversation that I was thinking about is that when it comes to issues in public spaces, like societal issues that we face that we may not agree with or that our faith calls us to speak out against, I think of the line from the Bible where it says that we should be as wise as serpents and innocent as doves, and that sometimes there's a place to say something and sometimes silence speaks even louder than words. And I think there's a time for both things, a time to actively protest and open your mouth and put yourself out there, and a time to just be quiet and let God do the work, and maybe your silence will actually speak louder than anything you could say. So there's that aspect of it too. So those are my thoughts for today.
Those are our thoughts on the whole issue of compromising as Christians, and you heard from Maureen's mom, my mother-in-law, Krista, and Maureen and myself. And so hopefully that gives you 3 different perspectives on this topic, and feel free to tell us your perspective or your opinion and what you think about compromising your faith or not compromising your faith. We'd be interested to know. So have a great day, and that's it.